Hi everybody, Peter Zellum's Griniflix Adventure 8 and welcome to another video. Okay, well today, it's an exciting video. It's what you have been waiting for, my subscribers. The comparison between the new Leica M11 and the Leica M10R. I thought the way I'll do this comparison is basically just take these two cameras out and shoot them in real life, both in daylight today, but also later on tonight I'll do some night shots and we'll do a comparison between the two cameras. The lenses I'm using are the 35mm APO f2 on the M11 and I've got the 35mm Summilux f1.4 on the M10R black paint version. Very nice. Okay, so I'll be shooting f2, will be the slowest f-stop I use, which will make it comparable as far as the two lenses are concerned. I'm not concerned about the difference in the lenses. I have reviewed these lenses before and there is a video there comparing the Summicron APO to the Summilux, and so they're very similar lenses, particularly at the f-stops that I'll be using, so the quality will be similar as well. So the only thing I'm really sort of comparing will be the sensors. So we've got the 40 megapixel sensor on the M10R and also the M11's got the 60 megapixel. I do recommend, if you're into watching these type of videos, one fellow that I follow is Math Photographer. There'll be a link there to his YouTube channel. A Swiss guy, photographer, and the brain the size of a planet, I suspect, because maybe it's just the Swiss. Really detailed in his analysis of photography, of digital photography, of film photography, of anything to do with photography. Great source of information, well connected to Leica, so I recommend his channel. So I won't be trying to replicate the detail of that he goes into as far as comparisons and getting down into the nuts and bolts of things, but I will be just doing the practical aspects of shooting the two cameras, the M11 and the M10R. I did order the grip for the M11 and you actually can see it here on the camera right now, and that makes holding the camera so easy. So I'm not planning to get a case for this. You might see a shadow on my Adventure 8 t-shirt. You can buy these Adventure 8 t-shirts if you want. If you want to support the channel, you can buy a t-shirt. I'll provide some links in the video. I'm using small rig frame that actually fits around the iPhone, and that way you can actually see the shadow. You can see the yes, you can see the shadow. But anyway, there'll be a link also. I reviewed the small rig frame camera case for the iPhone, and there'll be a video to that as well. I'll be shooting at the minimum ISO, which is 100 ISO on the M10R and 64 ISO on the M11, and show you obviously some images, and we can go into a bit more detail with those images as well, and you can sort of judge for yourself. I'll make some conclusions at the end of the video. I welcome your comments and suggestions and ideas as well. Alright, on with the photography around the harbour. Sydney Harbour, of course, if you didn't recognise it. Okay, alright, well, a few shots during daylight, I suppose. Now we'll go and reward myself and go have some dinner at a restaurant here in Glebe, Indian. Very nice. So by the time I've had some dinner, the light would have gone down. Right now we're at twilight, it's about 7 o'clock in the evening. And I'll go out again about around 8:30, I suppose, by the time I've had dinner. And we'll get some city lights around the harbour. See how both cameras perform as the lights go down. Can't wait for dinner, I'm hungry. Okay, we've got a bunch of photographs and I've already done some edits in Lightroom. I'll do a slideshow of both the similar photographs taken with both the M10R and also the M11. See whether you can tell which is which, and then we'll go into Lightroom and talk a bit more about some of those photographs. Well, how did you go? Did you guess which was which? Well, okay, the answer is A was the M10R and B was the M11. At the end of the night, we had used 10% of the power on the M10R and 5% of the power on the M11. Both were showing 95% really, but then when I did review again, the M10R dropped another 5%, so I guess it goes down in increments of 5%. Okay, let's just jump into Lightroom, and here's the photographs. What have I learned from this exercise? Well, just take these two examples here. So we've got the M10R on the left and we've got the M11 on the right. So on the M10R I'm shooting with 35mm Summilux, and on the M11 the 35mm APO. Zoom in, and there's a couple of things that I did notice. So here the tower here of the bridge, now we're zoomed in at some phenomenal amount at 400% here, and it appears a bit out of focus there compared to the M11 there, but I suspect that's got to do with just my focus position. If we look at the marina here of this boat here, the sign here looks more in focus than it does on the M11. So that's the other thing I noticed was in my photography, is if I had my focus slightly different between the two cameras, then that showed up in these images. But otherwise the detail of both cameras is outstanding in my opinion. You obviously do have a larger file with the M11 being more megapixels. You can see here 9528 by 6328 compared to the M10R 7864 by 5200. So 40 megapixel versus 60 megapixel. Hence you have the larger file size. You can see here the focus is more on the foreground than the background, and hence if we go to the background here, then the background is more in focus compared to the foreground, compared to the background on the M10R. Alright, so long and short of it is you've got to get your focus accurate to do a good comparison. But in other aspects, we've got two great lenses and two great bodies. So we've got the M10R on the left, the M11 on the right. So let's just have a closer look at the wall here. Okay, so here it looks like we've got the focus quite similar, and we're getting similar detail in both cases. Focus is slightly different. I've focused more on the foreground here, closer than I have with the M11 on the right here. So the background is more in focus on the M11 than it is on the M10R, again because of my focusing. But otherwise the detail of both is very good. Yeah, in this case here I'm shooting both at f2, so focus is critical. How have I done the focus here? Let's zoom in. I reckon I got the focus pretty much equal in this situation. Now we're shooting at 6400 ISO, so the M11 is, I think, doing a better job. It's pulling up greater detail, and I think it's got more scope to pick up some of these highlights here. It's sort of missing out on the M10R. Pretty good job at 6400 ISO. The colors are a bit more vibrant with the M11, I think, at 6400 ISO, so that's probably where you start to notice the differences between the two sensors. Let's go have a look at another one, maybe the Chinatown alleyway. Okay, M10R on the left, M11 on the right. Shooting at f2, I think, in both cases. Both the Summilux and the APO do a great job, I think, in these sort of extreme conditions. Possibly the M11 does do a better job at these higher ISO levels, 12,500. You start to lose some of the color, some of the vibrance in the M10R compared to the M11, which I guess the specs seem to indicate that. So you are picking up greater detail, retaining the color at these really high ISO levels. And let's have a look at the last one here, the neon sign, and let's see how that handles it. Okay, M10R on the left, M11 on the right. Yeah, so you can see the difference here with the M11 at 800 ISO, so reasonable ISO. You seem to pick up the colors in the extreme quite nicely. See a bit of grain in both cases, but not a great deal. Maybe a little bit better on the M11. In some cases I did do some editing. What sort of editing did I do? Okay, you can see what I've done here. I've pushed up the shadows, I've brought the highlights down, and increased the exposure a little bit, increase the whites, reduce the blacks. That's the M10R, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly the same as I've done with the M11 as well. So the editing, the post-processing editing was much the same in both cases. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. If the sensor is the only thing that's determining whether you actually stay with your M10R or whether you go to the M11, well, that's a good question, whether that's reason enough to upgrade. Obviously, if you've got the money and you just want more pixels and a little bit more detail in the higher ISO, night shooting, etc., then that will justify it. But then there might be other things about the M11 that you prefer over the M10R, which obviously adds to the appeal. But in my case, I think the M10R black paint version is something that I'll be keeping together with the M11, where I want two cameras of high quality, and then that would be a great combination to have the M10R and the M11. What's your view? If you're coming from, if it's your first Leica, well, the M11 I suppose is a natural choice. If you're coming from the M240, what would you go for? If you can pick up a cheap M10R, then that's obviously a good thing to do rather than going for the M11. If you've got the money, of course, then go for the M11. Welcome your view and your comments, and did you pick which was which, A or B? Let me know. I think we're going to wrap it up right now. It's been fun just walking around the harbour again, comparing the two cameras. Uno, due. But I think that's it. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed some of the photographs that I've shown. If it's the first time to my channel, then do subscribe, press notifications, you'll be notified when the next video is out. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, that really helps support the channel. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks for watching, see you next time, cheers.